Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to join you at this TICAD 8-side event session on accelerating clean energy access with climate finance. Africa has made significant progress in terms of access to energy over the past 20 years, as the share of the population with access to electricity increased from 36% to 56%. Since the African Development Bank launched its New Deal on Energy for Africa in 2016, our financing has helped to connect 21 million persons to electricity. Our priority has been to help unlock the huge renewable energy potential that Africa has in abundance. This includes 10 terawatts of solar, 350 gigawatts of hydropower, 110 gigawatts of wind, and 15 gigawatts of geothermal potentials. Now, tapping into these vast renewable energy sources will accelerate the transition of Africa towards provision of more cleaner energy sources for its population. At the African Development Bank, we are spearheading this drive towards renewable energy on the continent. The bank increased the share of renewable energy in its energy generation investment portfolio from 56% in 2010 to 2015 to 85% during 2016 to 2021. Over the past 5 years, the bank has also invested a total of $7.4 billion in energy and mobilized $950 million in co-financing sources, including from the European Union Commission, the Climate Investment Fund, and the Green Climate Fund. The bank has made several major investments in renewable energy as part of our commitment towards achieving net zero emissions in Africa. Our financing has helped to increase power generation capacity by an additional 3,000 megawatts, out of which 2,300 megawatts are from renewable energy sources. The bank financed the 510 megawatts New Ouarzazate solar power project in Morocco, the largest concentrated solar power plant in the world. The bank also financed the 310 megawatts Lake Turkana wind power plant in Kenya, Africa's largest wind power plant. The bank is also today co-financing the 420 megawatts Nachingel hydropower plant, the largest privately financed hydropower plant in Africa. The bank also financed utility-scale renewable energy projects, including 4 solar photovoltaics independent power producers, IPPs, in Egypt for a total of 350 megawatts. To accelerate access to electricity for low-income households and for those who are far from the grid systems, the African Development Bank is financing off-grid power systems based on solar. For example, the bank supported during the COVID-19 pandemic a $20 million off-grid recovery platform that supported energy access for businesses and provided energy services for 3.5 million people, sustaining 3,000 jobs. Our facility for energy inclusion, a $500 million fund, expects to finance between 35 and 50 debt investments and deliver 300 megawatts of energy generation and 3.3 million off-grid energy connections. Now, some of these investments are already showing impressive and encouraging results in providing access to clean energy for low-income households. Through the bank's financing for the last mile connectivity project in Kenya, the country has been able to connect over 2.2 million persons to electricity via the grid, while lowering their grid connection cost from $350 to $150, which they can also pay over several years, making energy access more affordable. Our loan of $8 million in local currency to the company called B-Box in Rwanda allowed it to roll out new solar home systems and provide clean and affordable energy to 35,000 households. Our $2.25 million inventory financing to a company called Sun Culture in Kenya has allowed it to roll out over 6,000 solar pumping kits, supporting smallholder farmers to produce more food and assure access to supply of water and energy for household use. Our Leveraging Energy Access Finance Framework, a program called LEAP, will enable the financing of 18 decentralized energy projects in Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, Ethiopia, and Tunisia. Now, this $815 million project has already received co-financing of $171 million from the Green Climate Fund. Now, despite all these investments, Africa still has close to 600 million people without access to electricity. That's 3/4 of the world's population without access to electricity. A large share of this population is in the Sahelian countries. And that is why the African Development Bank is mobilizing $20 billion to support what we call Desert to Power program that will construct 10,000 megawatts of solar power plants across 11 countries in the Sahel and provide access to clean energy for 250 million people. Now think of it, that is 42% of Africa's population without electricity. However, renewable energy alone, I must say, will not provide energy security for Africa, given the intermittency of renewable energy sources. Of course, a major factor is climate change. Climate change has made relying on hydropower more unreliable due to frequent droughts that have lowered water levels in dams, causing instability in power supply. Now, relying also on solar and wind is constrained by their inherent variability until the cost of storage becomes sufficiently competitive. Therefore, natural gas must be part of the energy mix of Africa. This will allow for stable and reliable baseload power while optimizing available solar and wind. Now, we must also ensure access to clean cooking energy for households, especially for women, majority of whom depend on firewood, charcoal, and kerosene for cooking, all of which pose great risks to their health and life. That is why the African Development Bank has invested $10 million in the first loss tranche of a fund called Spark Plus Africa Fund. The fund will support companies to manufacture and distribute clean cooking solutions for 2 million households. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa requires a lot of financing to close its energy deficit. To achieve this, Africa will need greater volumes of climate finance, as available climate finance for Africa falls way short of its needs by $127 billion per year between 2020 and 2030. At the African Development Bank, we are doing our part. Over the past 6 years, we have allocated $14.7 billion to climate finance. We increased the share of the bank's finance for climate from just 9% in 2016 to 41% today. And we have doubled our commitment to climate finance to reach $25 billion by 2025. As we look towards COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, we must now move from promises to concreteness of financing. The $100 billion annually in climate finance promised by developed countries to developing countries must be met. Africa is ready for just energy transition, but it can only make that transition if global climate finance transitions from promises to financing. So, let us turn promises into commitments. Let us turn commitments into financing. Net zero emissions cannot be achieved with zero financing. Together, let us provide greater volumes of climate financing for Africa. Thank you very much.